Hello, church, and welcome back to our daily devotional for today's lesson. This is Tuesday, June 16th. Today we come into chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes. To a degree, depending on how much you want to accept scholarship or get into it or any of that, we actually hear the conclusion of the book. We will be having concluding verses that Towner argues are added in as an epilogue to kind of finish it off. And you'll also hear, I imagine, the difficulty of the break as we go through. We get into this really poetic section that is neat. And Towner gets into it more than I think you would be interested in knowing or hearing about. But remember, in oral culture, that these pieces of scripture are very often being performed orally, and just kind of allowing these rich images to settle in with us is an important thing, and an aspect of scripture that we very often miss in our modern culture. So today we're going to have verses 12, chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. Towner, and I think you'll hear this in the commentary, Towner identifies the first 7 verses as kind of those meat, and then you're going to hear the very familiar refrain again at the conclusion of it. We also mentioned yesterday, as we were concluding chapter 11, that in the NIV, it presents it as poetically written. And so it's kind of doing this stanza and breaking and repetition. The NRSV does it as a prose section. So it looks like fairly standard text, but you're still encountering these images. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years draw near when you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return with the rain, and the day when the guards of the house tremble and the strong men are bent and the women who grind cease working because they are few, and those who look through the windows see dimly. When the doors on the street are shut and the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of song are brought low. When one is afraid of heights and tares are in the road, the almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper drags itself along and desire fails, because all must go to their eternal home, and the mourners will go about the streets. Before the silver cord is snapped, and the golden bowl is broken, and the pitcher is broken at the fountain, and the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the breath returns to God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher, all is vanity. Just some really powerful images as in there. You might have picked up on it in your listening, but this is really a reflection on a reflection for a person in their youth on the aging process, and ultimately these images of parting and brokenness and the wearing of time on them. I wasn't going to get into it initially, but Towner spent some time talking about the word windows. And almost immediately in our modern context, when we're thinking window, we're thinking glass dividing us from what's going on. It wasn't that set up in the time of the Old Testament. He makes a line about glass actually being like almost as costly as gold, and that there are these kind of lattices that would allow people to look outside without being recognized necessarily themselves to see what was going on. His introductory commentary for our 1 through 8 section. Such a reading accords well with this magnificent allegory of old age, which is addressed to youth. Over the years, commentators have attempted to discern a consistent, extended metaphor underlying the imagery of this passage. Some have imagined that the body and its organs are being allegorically described here. Others have supposed that the verses picture a storm. Yet others see the prevailing metaphor as a house and estate in decline. That one I heard more than the other ones he's mentioned. There is, in fact, no pressing reason to insist that the allegory be entirely consistent. The most satisfactory understanding of the imagery may simply be to let each image remind the reader of what it will. Poets write that way, after all, not intending to exercise strict control over the range of impression their images evoke. Wise words from Towner. And here's a couple portions from our time of reflection. We will have one more session, I believe, to conclude Ecclesiastes. And there's a couple of portions from this reflection that I think are good. It will be a part of that, as well as some of Towner's on concluding remarks. The true counterpoint of the joyous affirmations of chapter 11, verses 7 to 10, is the lyric of chapter 12, verses 1 through 7. If the NRSV punctuation accurately reflects the Masoretic system of conjunctive and disjunctive accents, and then he does a little parenthetical note, which, by reflecting the way in which the text of the Hebrew Bible was recited, provided it with the most of the very minimal punctuation that it had, then this entire passage of 7 verses is all one sentence. Because Hebrew literature is, on the whole, given to short and pithy utterances, such a stylistic variation has to be taken as a serious clue to the intended understanding of the passage. Lectors, cantors, preachers, and those who read scripture out loud need to practice this passage over and over to capture the richness of oral interpretation that it provides. I did not practice this over and over and over before reading it for you. Thank you for much needed grace. One of his concluding portions. Not only Herman Melville, who, as we have seen, drew heavily on Ecclesiastes, but also Washington Irving, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Henry James, and Lytton Strachey used the image quite straightforwardly as a metaphor for the end of life. One of the more notable allusions is found in the first lines of Edgar Allan Poe's Lenore. Ah, broken is the golden bowl, the spirit flown forever. Let the bell toll, a saintly soul floats on the Stygian river. And now for Peterson, as I minimize the screen. And reminder, so this is continuing from the previous section of 11, so there's not a new title for Peterson. Honor and enjoy your Creator while you're still young, before the years take the toll and your vigor wanes, before your vision dims and the world blurs and the winter years keep you close to the fire. In old age, your body no longer serves you so well. Muscles slacken, grip weakens, joints stiffen, the shades are pulled down on the world. You can't come and go at will, things grind to a halt. The hum of the household fades away. You are wakened now by birdsong. Hikes to the mountains are a thing of the past. Even a stroll down the road has its tears. Your hair turns apple blossom white, adorning a fragile and impotent matchstick body. Yes, you're well on your way to eternal rest, while your friends make plans for your funeral. Life, lovely while it lasts, is soon over. Life as we know it, precious and beautiful, ends. The body is put back in the same ground it came from. The spirit returns to God who first breathed it. It's all smoke, nothing but smoke. The quester says that everything's smoke. Very intriguing portion for Peterson. Whereas I heard a lot of that declining estate and the cistern cracking and the will deteriorating. Clearly, Peterson goes for that image of the body connected to aging and ultimately coming to our end. So neat, yeah, neat part. It would be fascinating to know if there was another interpreter and commentator that Peterson was using to really get that portions, or if that just happened to be what he was bringing out from some of those Greek roots for the message. All right, so that's it for today. I feel like I have shown my the biblical nerdiness more than a small portion. So thank you for joining with us. We'll be back with you tomorrow as we finish up Ecclesiastes, and we will see you then. Have a great day.